أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب عليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لأعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في السور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفسا شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أذل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخنا على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مزيا ولا يرجعون ومن نؤمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه شعرا وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إن نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأكثر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو خلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وظل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توسعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تصامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فاده من البلاء أقلته وكم من عسار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقسرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي يا سيدي. فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفتحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي كل الأحوال رعوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنذر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك وخالفت بعد أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاءك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك، وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا، مستغفرا منيبا، مقرا مدعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي، يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي. هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته، أو تبعد من أدنيته، أو تشرد من آويته، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة، وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مدعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب، وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكسوه، يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته. فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه، ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك. وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي، فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها أذج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته. فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر على النذر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجاء عفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأذجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفطراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يذج إليك ذجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك فباليقين يقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاهديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماءك أقسمت تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسانا فذلته أو برا تنشره أو رزقا تبسطه أو ذنبا تغفره أو خطايا تستره يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في اتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين واشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو معك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد ومن كادني فكاده واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخصهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك وعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقلني عثرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم العجابة فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء. يا صابع النعم يا دافع النقم، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بما أنت أهله. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين عليا ولي الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. هيا على السلام. هيا على السلام. هيا على الفلاح. هيا على الفلاح. هيا على خير العمل. هيا على خير العمل. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Inna Allah malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Respected scholar, my elders, brothers, sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Fatiha is requested for all the names listed on the screen and Kul Marhamin Al-Fatiha. I am Yujibun is requested for all the names listed on the screen and whoever is in need of it here and elsewhere. Let us all recite it together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu su. Amma yujibul mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu su. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا وطبيب ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين المكرمين الخيرين الفاضلين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفدا ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're continuing our discussion about whether Islam is full-time or part-time. Whether Islam really is a complete way of life or just there to tell us to be good people and that's it. And this is also we can figure out if we can adopt and how we can adopt an Islamic lifestyle. So first we ask the question, well, what's the history of these discussions? Why is it that people are questioning whether religion can answer all of our problems or not? So we've gone through European history, right? We talked about in the dark Middle Ages is when the initial kind of questioning and antagonism and hate towards religion began. Then in the scientific revolution, people started to look for other sources of knowledge. In the Enlightenment, they thought that the human intellect or mathematics, these higher level sciences, they can determine and tell us these deep questions, they can answer these deeper questions for us. Then the Industrial Revolution, people went forward and said, well, okay, maybe it's science that can answer the questions, not the human intellect, not rationalization. So we've now pretty much ended up in the modern era, right? In this, in the 1900s or rounding out the 20th century. Next week, we're going to continue that discussion, right? And talk about what is going on in this modern era. But for today, we wanted to continue some of the spiritual reminders that we have. Right? If you remember last time, as we were discussing the historical stuff, right, we didn't want to just make it some history lesson, dry and boring. We wanted to make sure that as we were looking at history, even though it's European history, I think most of you have been able to tell that these same issues, they apply to us right now. The same problems that the people faced in Europe seems like they ended up in the Islamic and Muslim countries and nations, and now us Muslims here in the West, in America, in North America, we are dealing with these same issues. So we are basically reliving what happened in Europe. The path of them being one with religion, seeing religion as a source for everything, and now you can see that in Europe, religion is a joke. That same idea now has crept over here into North America, and people now, atheism is on the rise. Even in our own community, we have many members of our own community who are atheists, and we're trying to figure out why that's the case. And some of these same spiritual diseases which existed then are present within our communities right now. So we wanted to take some lessons from those, from that past, and try to make sure we don't have those same spiritual diseases. So the first thing that we talked about was, it's easy for us to criticize others. Let's make sure that we're working on ourselves first. And as we learned from the Imam, they said, if you actually see a defect and a problem in someone else or in something else, in an organization or a community, a center, whatever, the reason you can probably see that defect and that problem is most likely because you have that problem yourself. So that means you should work on it before you start bad-mouthing or insulting others. The second reminder that we had for ourselves was that in religious education especially, but in all sorts of education, in parenting, in guidance, in management, we should be preferring love and gentleness over harshness and strictness. Then we also went through this idea of, is Islam actually against being intellectual and rational? And we said, no, it's not, but we need to know, what does it actually mean to be rational? And we talked about using some of the discussions that Shahid Mutahari brings, rahmatullah alayh, what is real thinking and what is fake thinking. So this is what we've gone through so far. So today, what we'd like to go through is this, that, okay, we know that sometimes we end up criticizing others before working on ourselves. Okay, a lot of us have that disease. Sometimes we're overly strict and harsh when we should be loving. Okay, that's a problem. Sometimes we end up doing fake thinking, right? We use our egos, or we appeal to authority, and we blindly imitate other people and get easily attracted to other ideas. We just follow the majority, right? We get stuck in all these problems. Is there a main source for all of these problems? A main spiritual disease that we can kind of hone in on? Is there a main reason why Europe fell the way it did? Is there a main reason why the Muslim empire or the Muslim countries have, disintegrated over time? Is there a reason right now, a main reason why our communities are suffering so much? Can we point to something? We want to know and want to ask and try to answer tonight, what is the main source for the doubts that many of us face? What is some of the main reasons that, just like back then in Europe and right now in Muslim countries and in our own homes, why are people leaving Islam? Why are they leaving religion altogether and going towards other things? Why are they substituting religion for their human intellect? Why are they substituting religion for science? Why are they replacing capital G God with a lowercase g God like their own desires? Why are some trying to incorrectly and inappropriately reform religion? And why are so many others stuck in their ways and unable to change and adapt to the current situation and to solve the problems that we have in front of us? If we want to solve that and try to offer advices, we need to see what the Imams have said about this. And let's go to the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. So if we were to ask him, Ya Mawla, what is the source of all problems, the source of all evils? the thing which is screwing up and causing corruption in everything that is going on right now, possibly the answer that we would find, as we do find in some narrations, is al-jahl, ignorance. So in two narrations, one says, he says, al-jahl aslu kulli shar, that jahl and ignorance is the asl, it's the foundation, the root, the source of every single evil thing. In another narration, he is reported to have said that jahl is fasadu kulli amr. It's that thing which ruins, causes corruption, and destroys every single affair and issue. So based on these narrations, this is what we need to focus on. The reason why maybe we are so insulting, the reason why our akhlaq is so bad, the reason we have so many problems in our lives, in our communities, with our families, whatever, all the things that we've been talking about throughout history, it seems like it can all be traced back to this one huge spiritual problem, which is ignorance. If we wanted to, we could do a whole series just on the concept of jahl and ignorance itself. We know that there's a lot of emphasis in the narrations and in the Quran about the concept. Now, we are just trying to make sure we attach it to our discussion that we're talking about, right? So we're going to wrap this up in about 10 minutes or so. We're not going to spend too much time on it, although I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions. So feel free, again, Slido is always open. You can ask your questions. We can try to address those. And then, as usual, after that, we'll move on to the quiz, inshallah. From this idea of ignorance, we end up splintering off into all these other problems. But it seems like ignorance really is the actual source. Now, sometimes we get confused about what does it mean to be ignorant. Now, we love to call other people ignorant, right? Like, oh, you're being ignorant right now. Or this person acts ignorantly. They're dumb, they're ignorant, they don't know what they're talking about. It's easy to accuse others. Instead of just kind of giving, going by the normal understanding that you and I have, what I thought would be a good idea is let's look at through the book Misbah al-Sharia, which is attributed to the sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. And let's see, in chapter 34 of that book, you can find the English translation online. It's on Al-Islam, translated as Lantern of the Path. And again, there's two opinions of this book. One opinion says that it's from the sixth Imam. It's his writings, or his students have written down his words. So it's a collection of his more mystical, spiritual advices. And others say it's hard to say whether it's actually attributed to the sixth Imam. It could just be a book of spiritual advices based from many of our great scholars, Urafa and Sufis. Regardless, it's a book that we can benefit from. So in chapter 34, it's dedicated to the concept and topic of ignorance. Let's see what supposedly the Imam is saying over here. What are the key qualities and traits of ignorance? So firstly, it says the key, the miftah, for ignorance is what? Is being satisfied with the knowledge one possesses and placing all one's trust in it. A lot of times what happens? We've been raised in a household by our parents or our guardians or some family member, right? Then maybe we learned about Islam through our madrasa system. Then maybe some of us have learned a little bit more from the mimbar, from majalis, from extra classes, from reading books, from attending lectures, watching YouTube, reading articles, college, Hausa, pre-Hausa, whatever it is. So we've accumulated more information about Islam at various different levels. The key to ignorance, according to this book, according to the sixth Imam here, is that whatever information you and I have, we think that we are satisfied with it. We think that it's enough, right? It's kafi, right? We do kifayat with it. That, look, whatever information that I have right now, it's more than enough for me. I don't need anything else. I don't need to learn. I don't need to discuss. I don't need to do anything else, right? And so what the Imam says is you take the knowledge you have, you're satisfied with it, and then you place all your trust there. So now if somebody were to come and actually argue or debate or disagree with you, what do? You dismiss them. You don't even want to discuss with them. You don't want to entertain a discussion. You think what you know is correct and everybody else is wrong. You're right, everybody else is wrong. This, according to the Imam, is one of the keys to ignorance. On the other side, what do you see? The Imam says on the other side, the miftah al-ilm, the key to knowledge is the desire to exchange one level of knowledge for a higher level, together with divine grace and guidance. There's a lot to unpack here. I mean, if we had more time, we could do a lot more here, but there's so much to unpack. So what is, again, a key to knowledge here? One is he's saying it's the desire to exchange one level of knowledge. Now, he doesn't say one level of knowledge for someone else's or another type of knowledge. It's exchanging one level of knowledge for a higher level, meaning in order to gain more knowledge, you already have to assume your knowledge is at a lower level, that there has to be more available, right? The exact opposite of the ignorant person who believes that they've got all that they need. They are the alim, they are the arif, they're the most knowledgeable individuals. They don't care about discussing things. The door to education is closed for them, right? They graduated. But for people who are scholars, who are students, who have the key of knowledge, they're willing to discuss. They're willing to increase their knowledge. And when they engage in a discussion with somebody, they know that they can elevate their knowledge. And again, the Imam doesn't just say it's just by talking to people and using your mind and your intellect, right? He adds what? Together with faith, with divine grace, with lutf, and hidayah and guidance. It's not just you and I reading books. It's not just listening to this stuff virtually. If Allah doesn't want us to have the information, He doesn't have to give it to us. A part of humility is not just knowing that there's more to life, but humility is not just knowing that I don't have all the information. Humility is also sometimes knowing that I don't deserve access to that unless God wants me to have it. This stuff is a gift from God. Knowledge, higher knowledge, is a grace from God. Keeping that in mind, hopefully will open the doors to knowledge for all of us. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. All right, let's go. What's the next part of the statement of the Imam? He says, the lowest quality of an ignorant person, of a jahil, is that they lay claim to knowledge which they do not deserve. They lay claim to knowledge which they do not deserve. Now, what does that mean? How can you claim knowledge that you don't deserve? I mean, if I know something, isn't it mine? Isn't it my piece of information? Isn't it my knowledge? Well, let's think about it. Let's give an example right now. I'm sure many of you have an opinion about whether Florida should shut down or not, right? Should we stay, should we keep things open and just do the social distancing, wearing masks or whatever? Or should everything be shut down and it be much more extreme like other states and other countries have done? I guaranteed everybody's got an opinion here. Some of you might say, look, we need to open everything up. That's the best way. Forget the masks. It's impinging on our freedom and all of this other stuff, right? And some of you might be saying, no, we need to shut things down as much as possible and flatten the curve, be safe, right? Even if the economy takes a hit. Health and safety is more important. So I'm sure, hopefully, that position and opinion that we have is based on some information, right? Maybe you know that, hey, the reason we want things to be opened up is because we know, look, the economy is going to tank no matter what. So it's better we open things up, right? It's better for people. And we know that there's a lot of asymptomatic transmission and most people are going to have mild to little symptoms. So, statistically, it doesn't make sense. Or if you're on the side that, hey, we have to shut things down, well, you could say, hey, the economy is going to do the same regardless, so we might as well keep it shut down. People's health is the most important thing. And this is the CDC, WHO, whatever. This is what doctors are recommending, so we have to go with their advice. So both sides have information about why they chose something, right? They didn't just randomly pick it. The question is that your information? Is that your knowledge? Meaning, are you the doctor that has read the study that told you which side has more information? Which statistics make more sense? And the answer for most of us is going to be no. We haven't actually researched this properly. We haven't read everything properly. That's medical stuff. Think about Islamic information. Right now, there's a lot of discussions that are happening on social media about all these issues, right? Racism obviously is still the hot topic, I think, right now. So there's a lot of opinions that are out there. And what do people do? Of course, they want to quote the Quran. They're going to quote different narrations. They're going to quote Islamic history. They might bring words from scholars and books. Is that your knowledge? Do you refer to yourself as an Islamic scholar, as a mufassir, an interpreter of the Quranic verses? Do you understand the narrations that you're talking about? Are you an expert in the history? No, you're just regurgitating information that you've read in a book, right? And that's okay, right? That's how we learn. But what is the Imam saying here? It's the lowest quality of the ignorant person is that they are claiming that this stuff is their knowledge. So sometimes what you'll see is people won't actually say that they're quoting, let's say, Shaykh Mutahari. They won't say that they're quoting this book of this Ayatullah, this book of this Sheikh, or that they heard this point from so-and-so scholar. That's one thing. So they claim the knowledge for themselves, that they are interpreting the Quran. They are understanding the hadith this way. So it's their opinion. The other is this, is that, okay, even if they have that information that they're bringing from a scholar, have you actually read the other opinions as well? Do you really think that you've been able to research enough that you're able to engage in these discussions like anybody else? See, a true scholar, a real student, whatever discipline, whatever science they're a part of, they know the opinions of all the different sides. Meaning, they know, let's say, in terms of the medical one, they know that the pro-mask research and they know the anti-mask research. They know the research for opening things up versus closing things. They should know that. And again, if a certain expert doesn't know that, then could we really call them experts? I don't think we can. So we have to be careful that we are not claiming this information for ourselves, that we're saying, hey, I don't know, this is what I've read, but I could be wrong because I have got more to read. I don't know, right? Knowing the limits of our information here. We're not the ones deserving of that information. It's for those who are actual students and experts of that field. And that's why next the Imam says the most common characteristic of ignorant people is what? Is ignorance of their ignorance. Or as we know it in Arabic as jahl al-murakkab, compound ignorance. That's the most common thing. It's one thing to say, well, I don't know the Islamic position on, the difference between racism and tribalism, right? That's one thing. I don't know. It's another thing to say, to have an opinion and to not know that you're being ignorant about it. To be ignorant of your ignorance. Now, how can you actually tell that you're being compoundly ignorant? How do you actually know if you're being ignorant of your ignorance? Well, there's a few different ways to tell. One is what the Imam continues with. He says, there is nothing whose affirmation is the reality of its negation other than worldly ignorance and greed. And all ignorant people are alike. Meaning what? There's some characteristics that you can tell somebody has it or somebody is involved in it because they are the ones who very, very quickly deny it. We have this principle in other places too. Sometimes when you smell something that's, a little fishy, a little nasty, somebody will say, hey, what's that smell? Immediately, somebody in the group will say, well, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. So then you apply the principle of he who denied it, applied it, right? And I'm sure many of you know what I'm talking about here. So ignorance here is the same thing, according to what the Imam is saying. The people who are compoundly ignorant, they won't admit that they're ignorant. They won't say something like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I have more research to do. They'll say, no, I know what I'm talking about. I've done the research. I know exactly what I'm saying. One of the main qualities of a true humble student, a true scholar, a true alim, is that they say, well, I don't know. This is what I've understood so far, but I'm willing to learn more. And that's for almost every single opinion that exists there, right? That's a common trait. But when you sit down in a baraza, when you look on social media, when you see the way that we love to debate and discuss things, you can tell people are not willing to entertain the other side. They think that their opinion is the real true opinion and that's it. This is compound ignorance. You don't know that you're being ignorant of your own ignorance. And this is something that we have to be very, very careful of. So that's one way, right? The other is this, so we said that one way to identify compound ignorance is to, if you're somebody that quickly negates it, say, no, that's not my trait, right? I'm not ignorant. I know what I'm talking about. The other is this, is when a person doesn't engage in a knowledgeable way of discussing things. What do you mean? What do we mean? You see, there's two different ways of engaging in a discussion, right? There's a way that an ignorant person engages in a discussion, some of which we've already mentioned. And then there's a way to engage in a discussion that a knowledgeable individual does, an alim does, a person who's truly interested in gaining more information. Now, how does a person do that? How do you and I actually engage in a discussion in an appropriate manner, right? See, we'll give one point tonight, and then the rest we'll leave for next week. What is the Quranic method, generally speaking, for dealing with people we disagree with? Right? I'm saying shut things down. You're saying no, leave it open. I say that a certain practice in the community is not racist. You say it is racist. How can we actually engage in a civil, proper, akhlaqi discussion? Do we just start name calling? Do we just say you're wrong, I'm right? What are we supposed to do here? A very simple principle, and it should be obvious, but sometimes, unfortunately, unless we reflect, we won't see that we're not applying these ideas. What does the Quran say in chapter 2, Surah Baqarah, verse 111? Allah says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقالوا لن يدخل الجنة إلا من كان هودا أو نصارى. So the Jews and the Christians, what would they say? What were they saying? They were saying, only Jews and Christians will enter heaven. This is an opinion that they had, right? So obviously, when they're dealing with the Prophet, they said, look, you guys are not going to heaven. Only us Jews or only us Christians. We're the only ones going to heaven. You're not entering. Okay? So how now does the Quran address this? So the first thing is, of course, Allah is addressing that actual type of thought. It says, Tilka amaniyuhum. It's like, look, first of all, this is just like, they say it's like, what's the way to put it, right? It's wishful thinking, right? Like it's nonsense what they're talking about. But how do you respond? You say, hey, what you're saying is nonsense. What a dumb idea. No. What now does Allah command? He says, Qul. How do you talk to them? What do you say? Qul, say, Hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin. Hey, if you're telling the truth, if you're correct, then just bring your proofs. That's it. So what are we saying here? I'm willing to engage in a discussion with you. If you can prove it to me, then I'll accept that only Jews and Christians will go to heaven. But that's the thing. If you can actually bring the proofs. Now that means we have to be willing to listen to the proofs, and we also have to know what exactly is a real proof. Inshallah, next week we're going to open this up a little bit more and go into the kind of practical tips. Maybe 1, 2, let's say 3, 4, I think 5 or 6 practical tips with some narrations involved about how exactly can we engage in a very akhlaqi discussion, very civil, and be able to actually learn and benefit from having a difference of opinion with somebody. Right? And this is something that I think if we can solve this amongst our spouses, with our kids, with our nuclear families, extended families, and then outward to the community, and then hopefully do this on social media, this will solve so many of our issues, right? All that being at each other's throats will calm down. And we'll learn how to respectfully disagree with one another. Hopefully that'll be one of the fruits for this discussion next week, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So we'll see if there's any questions on Slido. And if there's no questions, then we can jump right to the Q&A. Okay, so nothing on Slido. So let's see who we have today. Move this mic out of the way. Okay, so Assalamu alaikum to everybody. Study bug. So that's somebody new or somebody old who has changed their name. The Dujis. Assalamu alaikum. Hopefully I said that right. Hasan backwards. Zahra, RJ, Zara, Al-Fath, Assalamu alaikum, Sakina, Akbar, Mujahid, Jan Muhammad, Zara, Al-Fath, Plato, I am not Imam Ali. That's very humble of you. MashaAllah, really good. While people are still logging in, Husseini, Assalamu alaikum, I wanted to thank everybody who sent their messages, who called, congratulating our family. We appreciate it. Those who sent food and gifts, it was very kind of you. Thank you so much. Right? It's nice to feel that love that we're used to in this community. So thank you everybody for that. Bande Khuda. I'm not gonna attempt that Turkish name. I haven't watched the series yet, so I can't try. Right? Assalamu alaikum, Jigani, Somjis. Go Corona is back with a vengeance in Florida. Okay, let's get started. All right, let's see if you can handle all the trick questions. Okay, first, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What were some of the main features of the Industrial Revolution? So, let's see if you can remember it from 2 weeks ago. Number one, or A, science became holy. People started to seek answers for social problems through science. The fight between science and religion became very intense, or is it all of the above? Now, you guys know that I mess around with you with all of the above stuff, right? It could be all of the above, but remember, we're saying main feature, right? Main feature. Maybe some of these were there, but maybe it wasn't the main one, right? Because some of these points they also took place before the Industrial Revolution, right? We talked about the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment. So these things were happening then too, weren't they? Okay, so I wasn't able to trick most of you this time. Ahsan, all of the above. Very good. Yep, all of these things. Science became holy, right? It became people's religion. They started to look to science. That's why religion and science, the fight started out because of that, right? Darwinian evolution was discovered at that point. Well, not discovered, but at least theorized. So of course that caused a lot of problems. And then, if you guys remember, using some of the different theories that were there, they started to talk about, hey, we can solve social problems using science too. So all the features were there during the Industrial Revolution. Okay, next. What is positivism? Is it A, positive, meaning real true knowledge only comes from science and sensory experiences? Is it B, thinking positively about one's life will lead to greater success and mental well-being? Or is it being positive and absolutely certain about the beliefs you have, or all the above? Okay, well, it could be all of the above, right? Because it could be an all-encompassing philosophy. But now you're thinking, well, the last one was all of the above. Would he ever do 2 all of the aboves in a row? Well, has he done it before? I don't know. Have I? Well, even if I have, wouldn't I do that to trick you to make sure you didn't get it right? I don't know. Thinking positively about one's life will lead to greater success and mental well-being, right? That's positivism, isn't it? And that's what people are pushing today, right now, right? To be positive thinkers. Or that, we want to be absolutely certain about our beliefs. That's what being positive means. I'm positive. Or is it that, no, positive is only about where you get the knowledge from science and from your senses. So which one is it? Or is it all of it? The trick worked again, but majority of you got it right. So positivism is a philosophy. It's an idea that the only way we can understand reality is through science and through the 5 senses, right? That's it. Hasan, good job too. 42% of you. Very good. All right, let's go. Who laid the foundations for the philosophy of positivism? All right, was it Karl Marx, Charles Darwin, Auguste Comte, or Friedrich Nietzsche? Friedrich Nietzsche, if I want to say it properly, which I do, which I just did. So who could it be? Right? Well, normally people think that Marx is popular for communism, but isn't positivism a part of communism? Well, Darwin, wasn't he popular for Darwinian evolution? But wasn't he pushing the fact that, no, it's because of science we can understand how things have evolved over time, not through religion or anything? Well, this Auguste Kant, the guy, wasn't he talking about the benefit of science and how we have to use that? Or was it Friedrich Nietzsche, everybody's favorite, who developed this idea that, hey, God is dead, na'udhu billah. Why? It's because of science. So which of these is it actually? What are we talking about here? Very good, very good. So it's Auguste Comte, the French philosopher. Now the others, it's, they may have believed in it, but they weren't the actual ones who laid the foundations necessarily. So it is this French philosopher that which 65% of you got right. Very good. Okay, last question. This is a key trait of ignorance. Not being able to understand logic and philosophy due to being uneducated, not knowing one's religious duties due to laziness, not willing to discuss things due to one's arrogance, or all of the above. All right, well, here we go with another all of the above. So now this one should be all of the above, right? I mean, all of those seem like they're traits of ignorance. But then again, you might say, well, he said, or the question says, this is a key trait of ignorance. So maybe I only mean one thing. But maybe I'm not being so specific, right? It could be all of them. And sometimes that's the way I phrase the question. So which way am I messing with you? Didn't we say that, ignorant people are the ones who don't use logic and philosophy? Didn't we also say that ignorance is because a person doesn't understand their religious duties? Or is it because they won't discuss things with people? What exactly is the key trait? From what we said today, according to the narration attributed to the sixth Imam. Let's see what we have. A couple more people, I think, right? 4 or 5 more people. So I got you. So it wasn't all of the above. So 48% of you got it. It was not willing to discuss things due to one's arrogance, right? What did the Imam say? It's one of the keys was that you're satisfied with your own knowledge and you're willing to rely on that, and that's it. Meaning what? Meaning you're not going to discuss things. So the first thing was what? Not being able to understand logic and philosophy due to being uneducated. That's not a key trait of ignorance. There are many people who don't understand logic or philosophy, but they're not ignorant people, right? They just don't, it's that science is not that discipline, that field of discipline. It's not for everybody. That's okay, right? That's it. Okay, let's see. Let's see the leaderboard. Somjis, very good. Study Bug, the Dujis, and Hadi Yusuf Ali. So another 4-way tie. Hasan, okay. And the timing was about the same too, right? About from between 2:10 and 2:20. All right, great job. And Plato always on there. So what is positivism was the hardest question. And again, I'm sure most of you haven't even learned about that in school. Maybe that's why. But now you should all know that and you won't forget. So next week we'll continue, inshallah, and we'll go forward and give some practical tips on how to actually engage in discussions. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرزيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأسلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك جاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرزي الزكي الحادي المهدي. وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولديك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والأروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم مؤكن بشرائع الدين وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرزيت به. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه. السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأوداءه. السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الزكي الناصح. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وتابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنتم معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا فضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوتهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر ولقد نافع عن أخي المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، والحقق الله بدرجة آبائكم في جنات النعيم. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان. الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى في وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه